The Galactic Academy's ethics hall had witnessed many tribunals, but none quite like this. Instructor Thalver's crest flared deep crimson as he stood before the assembled council, his three-fingered hand trembling against the podium. "She shouldn't have been able to," he said, his voice a rasp. "Humans don't possess the neural architecture for telepathy, it's biological fact." But the girl sitting in the center of the chamber, small, dark-haired, 19 years old, had just recited his most private memory aloud. The night his clutch brother died, the words Thalver never said, the guilt he carried like stone. How? The lecture hall smelled like chlorine and burnt sugar, standard atmosphere for mixed-species seminars at the academy. Reyes sat in the back row, her notebook open, her pen poised, trying not to breathe too deeply. Around her, 43 alien students shifted in their seats, antennae twitching, gills fluttering, eyes blinking in patterns she'd learned to read over the past 6 months. Most ignored her. A few glanced her way with what she'd come to recognize as pity. She was the only human in advanced cognitive ethics. Instructor Thalver entered through the side door, his scales catching the overhead light in shades of silver and green. He was Kithrin, a species known for their rigid spines and even more rigid principles. His crest lay flat today, a sign of calm or at least control. "Good morning," he said in flawless galactic standard, his translator chip rendering the words smooth and deliberate. "Before we begin, a reminder, psychic contact of any kind is prohibited during examinations and collaborative projects. This includes telepathy, empathic projection, and precognitive inference." A ripple of acknowledgement passed through the room. Most species here had some form of extrasensory perception. The Kithrins could sense electrical fields. The Yulari could project emotion across short distances. The Virine, those liquid metal beings in the third row, could share thoughts instantaneously within their collective. It was normal, expected, part of the curriculum. Thalver's gaze settled on Maya. "This rule," he continued, "exists to ensure fairness for all students, including those from species without such capabilities." His tone was neutral, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. Humans were the species without such capabilities. Humans were the ones who needed accommodations. Humans were, in the eyes of many here, primitives who'd been granted admission as a diplomatic courtesy, not a merit-based achievement. Maya kept her expression blank. She'd heard variations of this speech a dozen times. She clicked her pen once, twice, a habit she couldn't shake, and returned her attention to her notes. The lecture began. Thalver outlined the midterm project. Students would work in pairs to resolve a simulated ethical dilemma involving resource allocation on a colony ship. The scenario was intentionally ambiguous, designed to test not just logic but empathy, cultural sensitivity, and collaborative reasoning. "Pair assignments will be randomized," Thalver said, pulling up a holographic display. "No exceptions." Maya's stomach tightened. Randomized meant she'd likely be paired with someone who'd rather work alone. It had happened before. Last semester, her partner, a Yulari named Shes, had completed the entire project without consulting her, then submitted it under both their names. When Maya objected, Shes had said, "I sensed your thoughts. You agreed." Maya hadn't agreed. She'd been thinking about lunch. The pairings appeared on the screen. Maya squinted at the glowing text. Maya Reyes, Jorik Sen. She glanced around the room until she spotted him, a tall, angular Virine in the front row, his body a faint shimmer of copper and bronze. Virine were telepathic within their collective, but Jorik was a singleton, separated from his people by choice or circumstance. That might work in her favor, or it might make him bitter. Thalver dismissed the class. Students filed out in clusters, speaking in low tones, their conversations a blend of spoken language and silent exchanges Maya could only infer from body language. She gathered her things slowly, giving Jorik time to approach if he wanted. He didn't. She found him outside the lecture hall, leaning against the wall, his liquid form pooled slightly at his feet. "Maya Reyes," he said, his voice resonant like a bell struck underwater. "Human, that's me," she said, keeping her tone light. "I've heard humans have no cognitive defenses," Jorik said. "Is that true?" Maya tilted her head. "Depends what you mean by defenses. Mental barriers, the structures that prevent uninvited psychic contact." He studied her with what might have been curiosity. "Without them, your thoughts are open, vulnerable." "Good thing there's a rule against psychic contact then," Maya said. She met his gaze, or what she assumed was his gaze, given the way his surface rippled. Shall we find a time to meet? Jorik agreed, though his tone suggested he expected little from the partnership. They exchanged contact information and Maya left the building, stepping into the academy's central plaza. The air was warmer here, the artificial sun bright overhead. She sat on a bench near the fountain, pulled out her tablet and opened her notes, but her mind wasn't on the assignment. It was on Thalver's words, no psychic contact of any kind, and on the unspoken assumption beneath them that she, Maya Reyes, couldn't possibly break that rule even if she wanted to because humans didn't have the biology for it. She clicked her pen again, once, twice, 3 times. They were wrong. Maya had discovered her ability by accident. It was 3 months into her first semester, during a particularly brutal study session in the library. She'd been sitting across from a Kithran student named Vess who'd been drilling her on galactic legal precedents. Vess had a habit of tapping his claws against the table when he was impatient, and after an hour of that sound, Maya's head had started to ache. She'd closed her eyes, trying to block it out, and suddenly there it was. A thought clear as her own. Why am I wasting time with this human? She'll never pass. Maya's eyes had snapped open. Vess was staring at his tablet, his expression unchanged, but she'd heard him, not his voice, his thought. She tested it again, tentatively, focusing on the ache in her head and letting it expand outward. Another thought surfaced. I should have partnered with Shola. At least she understands resonance theory. Maya had excused herself, gone back to her dorm, and spent the next week trying to replicate it. It didn't always work. It required focus, a certain mental quiet she couldn't always achieve. But when it did work, she could hear thoughts, not all of them, not from everyone, but enough. Enough to know that most of her classmates thought she didn't belong here. Enough to know that her cognitive ethics professor believed humans were a charity case. Enough to realize that if anyone found out she could do this, she'd be expelled, or worse, so she kept it to herself. She used it sparingly, only when necessary. She told herself it wasn't cheating, it was survival. Now, sitting in her dorm room 2 days before the midterm project was due, Maya opened her tablet and reviewed the assignment one more time. She and Jorik had met twice. Both meetings had been stiff, formal. Jorik had done most of the talking, outlining his approach to the scenario with the kind of precision that suggested he'd already decided on a solution and was simply waiting for her to agree. Maya had nodded along, offering a few suggestions that he'd politely dismissed. She clicked her pen. Once, twice, she knew what she had to do. The next day, she arrived at their scheduled meeting in one of the academy's private study pods, small, soundproof rooms designed for collaborative work. Jorik was already there, his form settled into a chair-like shape. Maya, he said. I've prepared a draft of our submission. I thought we could review it together. Great, Maya said, setting her bag down. She sat across from him, pulled out her tablet and took a breath. Then she closed her eyes and focused. The familiar ache built behind her temples, spreading outward like ripples on water. Jorik's thoughts came slowly at first, fragmented. It didn't expect her to show up on time. Humans are punctual at least. Then, clearer, this project would be easier alone. Singleton or not, I don't need a human partner dragging down my grade. Maya opened her eyes. You don't think I can contribute, she said quietly. Jorik's surface stilled. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She leaned forward. You think working with me is a liability. You've already written the entire project yourself, haven't you? His form rippled, surprise, maybe, or unease. How? I'm guessing, Maya said quickly, based on the way you've handled our meetings. But I'm right, aren't I? Jorik was silent for a long moment. Then, yes, Maya nodded. Okay. Here's what I think. The scenario isn't about resource allocation at all. It's about trust. The colony ship captain has to decide whether to ration supplies based on species-specific needs, but the real dilemma is whether she can trust her crew to accept that some species will get more than others. Your draft focuses on the math, how to divide the resources efficiently. But it's missing the emotional core. The captain isn't a calculator, she's a person making an impossible choice. Jorik's form shifted, his surface catching the light. You read my draft. I skimmed your notes during our last meeting, Maya lied. In truth, she'd heard his thoughts, seen the outline he'd constructed in his mind. You're right about the efficiency model, but if we add a section on trust-building frameworks, how the captain could communicate her decision in a way that acknowledges the crew's fears, it'll be stronger, more complete. Jorik considered this. That's not a bad idea. They spent the next 2 hours revising. Jorik's initial resistance softened as they worked, his thoughts shifting from skepticism to grudging respect. By the end of the session, Maya had contributed 3 key sections, each one addressing gaps Jorik hadn't seen. When they submitted the project, Jorik paused at the door. "I underestimated you," he said. "Most people do," Maya replied. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her head throbbing. Using her ability always left her drained, but this time felt worse, heavier. She told herself it was worth it. She'd proven she could keep up. She'd earned Jorik's respect. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered, "You're breaking the rule, and sooner or later, someone's going to notice." She clicked her pen in the darkness. Once, twice, 3 times. The midterm results were posted a week later. Maya and Jorik received the highest score in the class. Instructor Thalver announced it during the next lecture, his crest flaring a muted gold approval by Kithrin standards. "Excellent work," he said, nodding toward them. "Your analysis demonstrated both logical rigor and cultural awareness. Well done." Maya felt a flicker of pride. She'd earned this. Yes, she'd used her ability, but only to level the playing field, only to compensate for the disadvantage of being human in a room full of telepaths and empaths. It wasn't cheating, it was adaptation. But as the class filed out, a Ulari student named Thessa approached her. Thessa was small, her skin a pale lavender, her eyes large and dark. She was known for her empathic precision. Some said she could sense a lie from across the room. "Maya," Thessa said, her voice soft. "Can we talk?" Maya's stomach dropped. "Sure." They walked to a quiet corner of the plaza. Thessa folded her hands, her gaze steady. "I've been noticing something," she said. "You've been doing very well this semester, better than most humans who have attended the academy." "Thank you," Maya said carefully. "I'm not complimenting you." Thessa's tone remained gentle, but there was an edge beneath it. "I'm observing. During group discussions, you often respond to unspoken concerns. You adjust your arguments in real time as though you're reacting to thoughts, not words." Maya's pulse quickened. "I'm just good at reading body language." "Perhaps." Thessa tilted her head. "But body language doesn't explain how you knew Jorik had reservations about your partnership before he voiced them, or how you addressed Instructor Thalver's unstated objection during last week's debate." "I made an educated guess. Did you?" Thessa stepped closer. "I'm not accusing you of anything, Maya, but if you are capable of psychic contact, if you're somehow perceiving thoughts despite your species' known limitations, you need to report it. The Academy has protocols for undocumented abilities." Maya's mind raced. If she admitted it, she'd be subjected to testing, scrutiny, possibly expulsion. If she denied it, Thessa might take her suspicions to Thalver. "I'm not psychic," she said, keeping her voice level. "I'm just observant." Thessa studied her for a long moment, then she nodded. "All right, but be careful, Maya. Perception is a gift, deception is a risk." She walked away, leaving Maya standing alone by the fountain. Maya's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists, willing herself to calm down. She'd been careful. She'd only used her ability when necessary. But Thessa had noticed, and if Thessa had noticed, others might too. That evening, Maya sat in the campus coffee shop, a tablet in front of her, a lukewarm cup of tea beside her. She wasn't working. She was thinking about the rule, about the risk. About the choice she'd made 3 months ago to use her ability instead of asking for help. She clicked her pen, once, twice. "Maya Reyes," she looked up. Instructor Thalver stood beside her table, his crest a neutral gray. "May I sit?" "Of course," Maya said, though every instinct told her to run. Thalver settled into the chair across from her, his movements deliberate. "I wanted to commend you on your midterm project," he said. "It was exceptional work." "Thank you, sir." Jorik spoke highly of you. He said you contributed insights he hadn't considered. Thalver's gaze was steady, unreadable. "That's unusual. Most students struggle to collaborate with Virine, even singletons." Maya forced a smile. "I guess I got lucky, perhaps." Thalver leaned back. "Or perhaps you're more perceptive than your species is typically credited for." He paused. "Thessa came to me this afternoon. She expressed concern that you might be engaging in psychic contact without reporting it." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. "I'm not. She believes you are." "She's wrong." Thalver's crest flared a faint red, suspicion or anger or both. "Maya, if you possess an undocumented ability, it's not a crime, it's a phenomenon. The Academy has resources to help you understand it, control it." But if you're using it to gain an unfair advantage, if you're violating the rules we've established for equity, that is a violation, a serious one. Maya met his gaze. I'm not psychic. I can't read minds. I'm just good at paying attention. Then prove it. How? Agree to a cognitive scan. It's non-invasive. If you're telling the truth, it will confirm your claim. If you're not, he let the sentence hang. Maya's mouth went dry. A cognitive scan would reveal everything, her ability, her use of it, her deliberate concealment. She'd be expelled. Possibly barred from ever attending another galactic institution, but if she refused, she'd be admitting guilt. When, she asked, tomorrow, 10 o'clock, Ethics Hall. Thalver stood. I hope for your sake that Thessa is mistaken. He left. Maya sat frozen, her tea forgotten, her tablet dark. She had less than 24 hours to decide, submit to the scan and face the consequences, or find another way out. She clicked her pen, once, twice, 3 times, 4. Maya didn't sleep that night. She paced her dorm room, her mind spinning through scenarios, each one worse than the last. She could refuse the scan and withdraw from the academy, but that would confirm her guilt in everyone's eyes. She could submit to the scan and hope the technology couldn't detect her ability, but she had no idea how galactic cognitive scans worked, and hoping felt like surrender. Or she could tell the truth, admit everything, face the tribunal and accept whatever judgment came. None of those options felt right. At 3 in the morning, she sat on the edge of her bed and opened her tablet. She pulled up the Academy's ethics code, scrolling through the dense legalese until she found the section on psychic abilities. All students possessing telepathic, empathic, precognitive, or related capabilities must disclose such abilities upon enrollment. Undisclosed abilities discovered during attendance will result in immediate review and potential disciplinary action. The next section outlined the disciplinary process. A tribunal convened in Ethics Hall, testimony from witnesses, a cognitive scan administered by a certified neural examiner. The accused student would have the right to present a defense. If found guilty, penalties ranged from suspension to expulsion to referral to galactic authorities for further investigation. Maya closed the tablet. She knew what she had to do. At 10 o'clock the next morning, she stood outside Ethics Hall, her palms damp, her pen clicking in her pocket. The building was old by Academy standards, its walls covered in carvings that depicted the founding species' first contact. Inside, the tribunal chamber was circular, the ceiling high, the air cool and still. Instructor Thalver sat at the head of the council table, flanked by 2 other faculty members, Professor Kalin, a Yulari with silver markings, and Dr. Auric, a Kithran elder whose crest was streaked with age. Thessa sat in the witness section, her expression neutral. Jorik was there too, his form tense, uncertain. A neural examiner, a tall, spider-like being Maya didn't recognize, waited beside a diagnostic console. Thalver gestured for Maya to enter. Maya Reyes, you've been called here to address allegations that you possess an undocumented psychic ability and have used it in violation of Academy policy. Do you understand the charges? Yes, sir, Maya said. Do you wish to submit to a cognitive scan? Maya took a breath. No, sir, I don't. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Thalver's crest darkened. Refusal is an admission of guilt. It's not. Maya stepped forward. I refuse because the scan is unnecessary. I'm not hiding anything. I am psychic. I can read thoughts. And I've been using that ability since I arrived at this academy. The murmur became a roar. Kalin leaned forward, her voice sharp. You admit to violating the disclosure rule? I admit to surviving, Maya said. Her voice was steady now, the fear replaced by something colder, sharper. Do you know what it's like to be the only human in a room full of telepaths? To sit through a lecture where half the class is having a silent conversation you can't hear? To work on a group project where your partner makes decisions without consulting you because they've already sensed your agreement? She turned to Thessa. You asked me to be careful, but I've been careful. I've spent 6 months pretending I don't hear the things people think about me. The insults, the doubts, the dismissals. Thessa's expression flickered, surprise, maybe, or guilt. Maya looked back at Thalver. You want proof? Fine, I'll give you proof. She closed her eyes, focused, and let the ache build. When she opened them, she spoke. Professor Kalin, you're thinking about your daughter. She's in her 2nd year at the Yulari Institute, and you're worried she's not adjusting well. You haven't told anyone because you're afraid it reflects poorly on your parenting. Kalin's face went pale. Dr. Auric, you're wondering if you should retire. You've been at the academy for 43 years and you're tired, but you're afraid of what you'll do with your time if you leave. Oryx's crest flared, but he said nothing. Maya turned to Thalver, her voice softened. And you're thinking about your clutch brother. His name was Then. He died in a mining accident 15 years ago. You were supposed to be with him that day, but you stayed late at the academy to finish a lecture. You never told him you were proud of him, and you've carried that guilt ever since. The chamber fell silent. Thalver's crest had gone completely still, his eyes wide. I'm psychic, Maya said simply. I didn't ask for it. I didn't disclose it because I didn't understand it. But I've had it my entire life, and I've been using it here because it's the only way I can keep up. You built this academy for species with abilities. You designed the curriculum around them. And then you admitted humans as a gesture of goodwill without considering what it would actually take for us to succeed here. She gestured around the chamber. You want fairness? Then stop pretending the playing field is level. No one spoke. Thalver's hands were shaking. Kalen looked away. Oryx's crest had flattened completely. Finally, Thalver said, "You've violated the disclosure rule. That fact remains." "I know," Maya said, "and I'll accept whatever consequences you decide. But I won't apologize for using the ability I have to survive in a system that wasn't built for me." Thalver stood. "This tribunal is adjourned. We'll deliberate and deliver a verdict within 3 days." Maya nodded and left the chamber. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright. She sat on the steps, her head in her hands, and waited for the weight to settle. The verdict came 2 days later. Maya was summoned back to Ethics Hall, where the tribunal sat in the same formation as before. Thalver's crest was a muted green, calm, or at least controlled. "Maya Reyes," he said, "we've reviewed your testimony and consulted with Galactic Legal Counsel. Our decision is as follows." Maya braced herself. "You violated the disclosure rule, that is a fact. However, we acknowledge that the rule itself is predicated on assumptions about human cognitive capabilities that were incomplete. Your ability is unprecedented. We have no framework for understanding how a species previously thought to be non-psychic could produce an individual with telepathic potential." Thalver paused. "As such, we are not expelling you. Instead, you will be placed on academic probation. You will work with Dr. Oryx and a team of neural researchers to document your ability. You will attend mandatory ethics seminars on the responsible use of psychic contact, and you will refrain from using your ability in any academic context unless explicitly permitted by faculty." Maya exhaled. "Understood. There's one more thing." Thalver's gaze was steady. "Your testimony challenged us to examine our own assumptions. Professor Kalen has proposed a review of the Academy's admission and curriculum policies to ensure they better accommodate diverse cognitive profiles. Dr. Oryx has agreed to lead the initiative. Your experience will inform that work." Kalen nodded. "We can't change the past, Maya, but we can try to build a better future." Maya felt something loosen in her chest. "Thank you." The tribunal adjourned. Maya left the chamber and found Jorik waiting outside. "I heard," he said, "probation could have been worse." "Could have been better," Maya said, but she smiled. "I also heard you exposed half the faculty's secrets in front of the entire tribunal." Jorik's form rippled. What might have been a laugh. That took courage or recklessness, little bit of both. They walked across the plaza together. The fountain sparkled in the artificial sun, and students moved in clusters, their voices a blend of languages and thoughts. Maya clicked her pen. Once, twice. But this time it felt less like a nervous habit and more like a rhythm, a beat she could follow. Jorik paused at the edge of the plaza. "For what it's worth," he said, "you were right about the project, about trust. I wouldn't have seen that without you." "Thanks," Maya said. "That means a lot." He nodded and left. Maya stood alone for a moment, watching the fountain. Then she pulled out her tablet and opened a new message to her parents back on Earth. "Made it through the midterm," she typed. "Also got put on probation for being psychic. Long story, I'll call you this weekend." She hit send, then she sat on a bench, pulled out her notebook, and started sketching ideas for her next project. The ache in her head was still there, faint but persistent, like a song she couldn't quite forget. She'd have to learn to live with it, to control it, to use it responsibly, but for now she was still here, still learning, still proving that humans belonged. She clicked her pen once, twice, 3 times, and then she began to write. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in a small lab on the Academy's research wing, electrodes attached to her temples, a neural scanner humming beside her. Dr. Oric watched the readouts with fascination, his crest flaring in shades of blue and gold. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Your neural pathways are forming connections we've never seen in human brain scans. It's as though your species is evolving in real time." "Or I'm just a fluke," Maya said. "Perhaps, but flukes are often the first sign of something larger." Oric made a note on his tablet. "How do you feel?" "Tired," Maya admitted. "Using the ability drains me, always has." "We'll work on that. There are techniques, meditation, neural conditioning that might help you manage the strain." He looked up. "You've been given a rare gift, Maya, or perhaps you've created it through sheer will. Either way, it's yours to shape." Maya nodded. She thought about Thalver's words in the tribunal, about Kalen's daughter, about the guilt and fear and hope that lived in everyone's minds hidden beneath the surface. She thought about the rule and the reasons for it and the ways it had both protected and limited her. "I don't want to be the only human with this ability," she said quietly. "If I am evolving, if my species is changing, then others will follow, and they'll need guidance, support. Not punishment. That's why we're documenting this," Oric said. "So when the next Maya Reyes arrives, we'll be ready." She smiled. "No pressure then." That evening, Maya met Jorik at the coffee shop. He'd brought a new scenario for their next project, something about interspecies trade negotiations. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally bouncing ideas off each other, and when Jorik made a joke about humans and their terrible sense of humor, Maya laughed. Really laughed. It felt good. As they packed up to leave, Jorik paused. "You know," he said, "when I first saw your name on the pairing list, I thought I'd been given a disadvantage. I was wrong." "You were," Maya agreed. "Humans are more adaptable than most species give them credit for. We have to be," Maya said. "We didn't get invited to the galaxy. We showed up and made space for ourselves." Jorik's form shimmered. "That's terrifying and impressive in equal measure. That's humanity." They parted ways at the plaza. Maya walked back to her dorm under the artificial stars, her pen clicking softly in her pocket. She thought about the tribunal, the scan, the probation, the research. She thought about the future, hers and her species and the Academy's. She thought about the rule and the ways it would have to change and the students who would come after her. She clicked her pen once, twice, 3 times, and she kept walking.